My name is Galen Mook, the Executive Director of MassBike. Great to have you on here. I'm co-hosting with Kristen, and maybe I'll just pass it over to you, Kristen, to introduce yourself, and we can just start rolling right on it.
Great. Thanks so much, Galen. I think it goes without saying that we would love to be enjoying beverages and food with you all in person, but here we are yet again virtually, but really excited to be able to see everybody across the state. I'm Kristen Sykes. I'm the president of the Connecticut River Valley chapter. I'm in lovely Holyoke, Massachusetts. And yeah, we have some great representation from the Connecticut River Valley here at MassBike. So
cool. I will say, I'm not going to share the full results, but knowing the spread here, we have a heavy presence in the Boston Metro, Metro West, and a heavy presence in the Connecticut River Valley. So glad to know where the ridership's hitting. For those of you who are a little bit further afield, let's try to ride with some buddies and see if we can bump up the numbers for next year's annual meeting too. I will say that my impetus this annual meeting comes from the folks in the Connecticut River Valley. They really spurred on the annual meeting ideology, and we want to take it into the virtual world and make it a statewide movement right here. So awesome. I do want to say, let's go, feel free. We have two staffers who are working this. I want to give a quick thanks before I forget to Jess Slavin, who's going to be rocking the presentation for us. She's our communications coordinator out in Northampton, and Crystal Walsh, who's our development coordinator out in Mattapoisett. And I'm zooming in from Alston, Massachusetts, just on the west side of Boston. I'll kind of pass it off to our board chair, Allison Burson, to kind of take it from there to introduce a little bit about what's going on in MassBike and our leadership, and then we'll jump right into our featured speakers, and we'll zoom away for the hour. So Allison, I'll pass it off your way, and thanks so much.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Burson, and we are so lucky this year to be welcoming a number of new board members, and so happy to have them on board with us. I don't know if we've got a slideshow with people's names. And so we're so thankful to have had this turnover and to be growing our board right now. And we'll be adding new board members annually. So stay tuned for more information and let us know if you might be interested in joining us. And then I also want to give a huge thank you to some outgoing, long-time serving board members. And Jess, if you can give me the next slide so we can see faces. And a huge thank you to Richard Banfield, Jimmy Pereira, and John Bordeaux, who cycled off the board this year. And also a huge thank you to outgoing board treasurer, Charlie Philbrook, and outgoing board chair, Erica Madison, who really led our transition and continuance into a virtual world. And then one last thank you, as Galen said, huge thank you to Kristen, our chapter president in the Connecticut River Valley. Huge thank you for everything she's done to expand our partnerships in Connecticut River Valley, and so happy to have her helping lead the show tonight. So thank you.
Thanks so much. And I just want to echo Allison's thanks to our outgoing board members. We've been able to grow the organization and transition under their leadership, and it has been, as any of you folks know who are in the nonprofit world, not an easy feat, especially in this era of finding new leaders and new staff to help push forward our mission and vision. So Allison mentioned very briefly, we will be doing a call for new board members. We brought on a lot of new board members this year. There's a lot of work and onboarding we can detail a little bit later in the presentation. But if you're interested in the leadership roles at MassBike, please do stay tuned. Keep in touch with us, because we are looking to diversify the geography, diversify the backgrounds of people who are helping steer the ship, and helping steer myself and the staff. And I'm super grateful for the leaders who have devoted their time and their wisdom to really making sure that we're on track here. So I think let's just jump right in, because we have some featured speakers here. This year's presentation was themed as All Biking is Local. And we were playing a little bit off of what I like to kind of give a hat tip to Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the US House from Massachusetts, who used to say all politics is local. Now, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, because biking, like all transportation, is regional. And we know that you don't just ride to a town line and then you're done. But unfortunately, or maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately, but the reality of it is that a lot of decisions that get made about how biking is supported, how infrastructure goes down, how policies, funding, and mechanisms, a lot of it happens from the local level, specifically from leaders in town government, town managers and mayors, but then also the hardworking staff who actually get the stuff done. The wheels on the ground workers that we like to say. So we've invited three participants, three champions, I should say, of our partners from across the state. I'll start here with Ricardo. I'm going to pass it off actually to Marge from Pittsfield to talk briefly about her relationship with Ricardo and some of the work going on in Pittsfield. We'll pass it off to Ricardo to talk a little bit about what it means to have Pittsfield's first, as you can see here, protected bike lane out there in Western Mass. Marge, are you on?
I am, aren't I?
I think so.
Well, this is the guy that, where the rubber meets the road. And when I walked into Ricardo Morales's office and saw his bike parked behind his desk, I knew I had a friend and a strong bike advocate who personally experiences the challenges of biking to work. He began by developing a vision for citywide bike ped access, enlisting the input from community members and seeking grant funding. He was quickly promoted to his present position as Commissioner of Public Services, and the city took on a new look. After his first pilot redesign of the main street was met with a lot of pushback, he expanded the route, incorporated the feedback, enlisted the support of important stakeholders, police and fire departments, ambulance services, and store owners. While the redesign was a contentious political focus in the recent city elections, Ricardo remained steadfast in his commitment to making the city bike friendly. He narrows the traffic lanes and increases shoulders as the city repaves. He ensures that all new major city projects comply with the city's commitment to complete streets. With the support of Mayor Linda Tyre, Community Development Director Deanna Rufa, Ricardo's positive spirit and engineering, oh, you don't have a, yeah, whoops. Oops, I can't fix that. Positive spirit and engineering skills will continue to make Pittsfield a bike-friendly place. I would like to thank MassBike for highlighting Pittsfield's efforts and giving Ricardo this opportunity to share his skills and experiences. Am I still on here?
Yes, we got you, Marge.
I am. Well, hola, Ricardo.
Hola. Hello, thanks, Marge, for that. Thanks for that introduction. You make it sound like I have a wand and I can conjure bike lanes. Thanks everyone at MassBike for having me this opportunity. Now I'll ask that everyone listening indulge me for a couple minutes as I talk about a few things. I'll call it a brain dump. But it all started a bit more than a decade ago, while I was still in college finishing my engineering degree. I came across a book called Green Metropolis by David Owens. Maybe you know which one that is, maybe not. I recommend it. At that point, my whole perception about the world changed right there. At that moment, I began to immerse myself into the fascinating world of population density, access theory, ecological footprint, city planning, and all that entails. What I didn't know at that time was how all of those things will one day be the main focal point of my role with a small city government. At some point in my career, I began adopting a way of thinking that goes something like this. For some in this world to live in a 3-bedroom house on a half-acre land and use a motor vehicle to move around, which admittedly is pretty much an average way of living in this country, it means others must live in an apartment in the center of a city, a dense city, and walk or bike to get where they need to go. And so, we live in a world with finite resources. And for that reason, our cities are the greenest places we have come up with. I am a strong believer in that a small and medium-sized city strikes a good balance in that polarized reality. That's why I chose to live in and work in Pittsfield, a small city with a great potential to reducing the ecological footprint of its residents. With that in mind, and with the help of my team and other outside organizations, we're actively moving the needle towards sustainable cityscape, implementing complete streets projects, not only when funded by the state, but with every project we aim for, using it as a policy and a standard. Working with great organizations like Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, the Berkshire Bike Path Council, and MassBike to educate our residents and moving forward the implementation of our bicycle facilities master plan. All those things working together to promote this way of living. Change is hard to accept, especially by a community like Pittsfield, which suffered from a large population downturn after GE left in the 80s and 90s. But I think as a beacon of progress, Pittsfield is leading the way in transportation for the future in Berkshire County. Transportation for everyone through mobility equity projects. We ensure that our streets are safer and that access is possible even if you do not drive. This is very important. Our demographics indicate a large amount of households with no motor vehicles, and these are also linked to economically challenged families. That would normally be a good statistic to portray if we also had a robust transportation system that could accommodate that type of demographic. I find that transportation equity enables access equity, which in turns enables economic equity. So in the screen, you have a few images, and I'll start now. Over the past 3 years, Pittsfield has almost doubled the buffered or protected bike lanes that we have, which weren't many. So that's easy to do, to double it. And an additional 60 miles are being planned at the moment. The city has been working and continues to work with the state to extend the Ashewiltikuk Rail Trail by 2 miles into the city. That's the image you were seeing, and the image you're seeing right now is the work we're finalizing, soon to be inaugurated. The first extension will soon, like I said, be inaugurated, and design work is underway for the second extension, adding a total of 2 miles to the already existing 11-mile trail that extends from Adams. Pittsfield is diligently working with the state to ensure future state projects act as an amplifier to our plans for the rail trail. And so the state is designing a 1.5-mile shared use path extension that will bring the rail trail closer to downtown Pittsfield. Our most recent streetscape revitalization project is about to break ground in the spring, and with it, new bicycle infrastructure to a neighborhood that has elementary schools, shops, housing, and is flanked by 2 of the largest employers in the region, General Dynamics and Berkshire Medical Center. Most recently, and taking advantage of the state's Shared Streets program, we implemented road diets on North Street, the main street of our downtown, and converted the lane into a double buffered bike lane in each direction. Bike activity increased immediately, and although it has been received with mixed emotions, it is widely recognized as successful. From day one, my team and I worked with emergency response agencies to avoid future clashes and to demonstrate a sense of inclusion. We also gave several talks to business owners and took in the comments from the initial pilot installation. We recognize that most adult bike activity in Pittsfield is related to commuting rather than recreation. For that reason, the city is committing to improving 42 miles in the next 5 years, the easy, quote unquote, way by redistributing the uses in the paved streets. Pittsfield resurfaces approximately 9 miles of streets every year. This means that using our master plan, we are able to balance the uses of our streets as we improve the street surface. There are many other details and projects I will not be able to mention tonight, but I hope the point getting through is that Pittsfield is choosing to have an active role in promoting a healthier, safer, happier way of living. Thank you all for listening.
Super. Thank you so much, Ricardo. It's really exciting to hear about all that's happening in Pittsfield, and we really appreciate your leadership on all of that. Now it's my great pleasure to turn it over to our next speaker. On November 2nd, 2021 was a historic day when Joshua Garcia became the city's first Latino mayor. Mayor Garcia is no stranger to politics, as he was previously the town administrator of Blandford, Massachusetts. Prior to that, he worked at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Mayor Garcia was also part of the management team that brought the Valley Bike Share program to the Connecticut River Valley, and according to Shannon Bliven, he was one of the very first supporters of the successful program. As a member of the Holyoke Bike and Ped Committee, which I serve on, I really look forward to working with Mayor Garcia to make Holyoke even more bike friendly. And I want to give a shout out to Cynthia Espinoza, who's with the planning department, who's joined us as well, and a number of other Holyokers. And now I'm going to turn it over to my Bike Ped Committee colleague, Shannon Bliven, to share a few words about Mayor Garcia. Shannon?
Hey, Shannon.
Hello. Sorry, didn't do the mute. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be introducing my mayor, Joshua Garcia. I'm so excited. And we also have my former mayor here, Alex Morris. So it's a pretty exciting day for me, and I can't wait to hear what Josh has to say.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Certainly, well, just know that when Pioneer Valley Bike Share came to Holyoke and surrounding communities, it was during my time at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And certainly a lot of credit goes to former Mayor Morris, who's who's here with us tonight, who can probably speak more about Holyoke's initiatives, as well as Cynthia, who's here tonight. Many of our initiatives that are going on currently to become a much more bicycle-friendly community. But I'll share a little bit my experience at PVPC, because I think everything Ricardo said, very important, equity and inclusion, and making alternative access to biking or to transportation. I guess what I wanted to share was that during my time at Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I managed the program's district local technical assistance program. And it's funding sources like state funding sources like DLTA, efficiency and regionalization funds, and other funds like the federal transportation CMAQ funding that really made this project a reality. At the very beginning, when my team first started talking about bringing bike share to the Pioneer Valley, the reaction we got was, it's never going to happen. It just wasn't really, it wasn't widely accepted. People didn't understand how it would work or how it'd be funded. But it was like anything else. It's communities and people coming together, having conversations, putting resources into planning, where all of this came to reality. It took 3 to 4 years. 3 different feasibility studies, monthly meetings. It started off with only 4 communities here in the region, and a 5th signed on at the last minute. And now I think we have how many, Shannon, participating in the Pioneer Valley Bike Share program?
8.
8 communities now and
8.
growing.
Yeah.
And how many more bike share stations have we put up in Holyoke alone within the last year or so, comparatively to when it first started?
We have 2 new stations this year, and you got me stumped there. We have a lot of stations in Holyoke. I have the list somewhere, but Cynthia probably knows it better than I do.
12 stations total, 3 new this year.
So that's just a testament as to the naysayers, that anything's possible. So when we first started It took, so in those 3 years, we've invested roughly $80,000 in those 3 different feasibility studies of just exploring, visiting other successful bike share models in the Commonwealth, having those interviews with those folks that were involved with those. And one of the issues that we couldn't get around at the beginning was understanding how to make bike share work here because of the hills and the mountains and folks possibly, wanting to ride their bikes down the hill, but not ride them back up, until engaging in an RFP process that eventually secured the electric model, which solved that issue. So, I'm a big proponent of you get what you plan for. We heard a lot about the Worcester bike share and the challenges that they were going through. And we certainly, investigated those. But you get what you plan for. Folks really, it was a model that was well thought out, wasn't rushed at all, that ultimately resulted in what we have today and succeeding going forward. So again, communities that are looking to explore ideas like this, there are resources that provide local governments the flexibility to do the exploring phase of these projects. And there are other additional resources that also help with implementation. So, you get what you plan for, and when communities come together and collaborate to solve problems, can ultimately result in successful projects like the Pioneer Valley Bike Share Program. Now that I'm in this role as mayor, I'm doing, it's only been a few short weeks, and I'm meeting with all departments and trying to get to recognize and understand the culture and the priorities going on. And certainly much looking forward to connecting with our planning department and catching up with Ms. Sykes and trying to understand what their goals are for biking in Holyoke, and to do what I can to continue to promote and make available, making Holyoke a bicycle friendly community. And I don't know if it's inappropriate at all, but if Cynthia or Shannon want to chime in, or even Mayor Morse, who was my mayor at the time, that were also at the table that helped bring this bike share program to the valley. But also, Mayor Morse, if you can even share some of your thoughts on when you were the mayor here in Holyoke, what you've done to bring Holyoke to where it is today when it comes to bicycling. Just putting it out there, no pressure.
Well, this actually, I'm not to hop in too much, but Mayor Garcia, this is actually a really good segue, because
perfect.
Up next, we have Alex, who's going to talk a little bit about Provincetown. And we invited Alex because, well, P-Town came on our radar because they were named the best small city in America to ride in this year by Bicycle Magazine. And I've ridden in Provincetown. For those of you who've been out to Provincetown and seen how great it is to ride in Provincetown, it's no wonder. But it was actually a perfect lineup because Alex, I'll pass it to you in a second. But your history in Holyoke, following up right here of everything that we've just discussed, it's just like a perfect lineup. So I'll just pass the mic to you and you can jump right in.
Great. Thank you, Galen. And it's great to be here tonight. I see a bunch of familiar faces out in Holyoke and Western Mass. So it's good to see everyone. I was in Holyoke for Thanksgiving. It was great to be home and see some familiar faces. And of course, want to recognize and thank Mayor Garcia for his leadership. Incredibly exciting time for Holyoke in a lot of ways. And wish you nothing but the best, Josh. And obviously all of us are always rooting for Holyoke. And I am, let's see, as far away as possible from the city as now at the tip of the Cape in Provincetown. And I can take no credit for making us the number one small city for biking in the United States, and apparently number 4 in the world. I will say I have been biking more here than I have in a long time, because it's really embedded in the lifestyle for many people in Provincetown, people who live here, people who work here. As you probably know, our town is essentially built on a sand dune. And we have 9 miles of bike trails through the national seashore. We have a long trail down Route 6. We have a new one that connects Conwell Street to the downtown, again to the national seashore. and like Holyoke, have the complete streets policy, a master plan for biking, and a number of other things. We also have a pretty strong and influential bike committee. They're in our town budget. They're given thousands of dollars a year towards their efforts to do bike trainings. So if it's not in the budget in Holyoke, so maybe put it in there. I know the bike committee folks are listening. So the bike committee also, we get a lot of J1 and H2B workers in the summer. And this isn't just about for folks who live here, but the vast majority of the hundreds of workers that live in Provincetown for 4 or 5 months don't have access to a vehicle, and their mode of transportation is primarily biking. And so it's incredibly important that we make it safe for the hundreds of people that, or thousands really, that work in Provincetown in the summer, a place to park their bike, to safely ride their bike. Commercial Street, which is our very busy street downtown. It's a one-way street. I think it's one of the only one-way streets in the Commonwealth by which we have special legislation to allow bikers to ride their bike both directions, not just the way of traffic. And so a policy there that really prioritizes access and transit when it comes to biking. And so again, this community has really valued biking for many years, and we have a number of projects still in the pipeline. And for those that don't know, we have about 3,500 residents year round, and in the summer we have upwards of 60,000 people a day. And there's possibly no way we could accommodate that level of vehicular traffic or vehicles, never mind the carbon footprint and lack of sustainability in town. And so part of the experience in visiting or living in Provincetown is being able to walk around and being able to bike around without having to rely on a vehicle, and also contributes to our tourism and business economy. More people can shop, eat, and walk downtown, which makes a big difference to the number of businesses we have in the downtown. So a lot of things have happened in the past, a lot of things yet to come, and want to thank Rick Alberg, the chair of our bike committee here in Provincetown. And again, also want to thank all of the people that were part of Valley Bike in Western Mass. I know you were involved, Josh, and Pat Beaudry at PVPC, and Shannon and Cynthia in the planning department. And I know Marcos, when he was with the city, worked very directly with the group to bring Valley Bike to Western Mass. And so glad to see it expanding to places like East Hampton. But it was originally an idea and a really great example of collaboration in a bigger region. And just hats off to all of you that haven't let up or continuing to push for bike-friendly projects and infrastructure, and really hope that cities and towns across the state and Commonwealth can get some of the infrastructure money to put towards not just highways and roads for cars, but to use that money to actually invest in human infrastructure and bike infrastructure for people here in the Commonwealth, Western Mass, all the way to Provincetown. So again, thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Galen, and your team for everything you all do to promote biking, make it safer and more integral to our lives in all 351 cities and towns here in Massachusetts.
Super. Thank you so much, Alex, and thanks for your leadership in Holyoke and in Provincetown. And now we're going to hear from Shannon Blevin. We've already been talking a little bit about Valley Bike, so thanks to Mary Garcia and others for helping tee that up. And Shannon is the community engagement and bike share developer for Valley Bike. So take it away, Shannon.
I always have a problem unmuting myself, but today, wow, I'm really humbled to be speaking with all of these wonderful leaders in Massachusetts, and three in particular I have so much respect for, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, here at Valley Bike, we do bike local in 8 cities and towns. Valley Bike has become part of the landscape in the Connecticut River Valley. It's just amazing to see. People are using it for transportation, they're using it for fun, and they're using it for exercise. It's no longer a novelty, which it really was the first 3 years. It's more of a way of life. Valley Bike in itself consists of representatives from each of the cities that it's in and UMass. And they make a lot of hard decisions about where the bikes are going to be. And they're doing a really good job about considering, first and foremost, equity and where they plan the bike stations. The goal of bike share in general is to be a form of transportation and also to be useful for people. And that's really where we're going with Valley Bike. We have passes for people who may not otherwise be able to afford them. That's our access pass, and it's been free for 2 years for an annual pass of unlimited hour-long rides. We have stations in neighborhoods that don't have access to fresh foods, and now people can ride their bikes to the grocery store. We have our bikes that will hold about 45 pounds and probably 2 or 3 bags of groceries. People I know who used to take Uber or other ride shares are now saving a ton of money because they can ride Valley Bike. Big shout out to West Springfield because they did put one of their stations intentionally on Memorial Road for the Big Y, so people would have access to the Big Y, and I may have even called it the wrong name. Anyways, we're open 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and that is a great form of transportation, as I said, and people biking local. They can use them to go to jobs at any shift and feel safe that they're going to have a ride home. Yes, and one of the things that we know about Valley Bike is that the valley is there's a lot of hills and a lot of mountains, and there's a lot of distance between our most northern station and southern station. This is what made the committee decide to use e-bikes, or as we like to call them, pedelec bikes. Wigan in Canada provides the equipment and management of the system for Valley Bike. Some of you may have heard of them, but if not, Wigan helps cities and regions reach sustainability goals by changing the way we move with our innovative docked bike share system. And it really is innovative. It's great. Riding a bike should be fun, and Wigan's user-friendly pedelec bicycle truly is a climate-friendly and fun form of transportation. This year, as you can see by the slide, the numbers are really great, and it's really showing how much the communities have adopted Valley Bike Share. 102,000 rides and 261,000 miles. So most of our trips average a couple of miles and last about 30 minutes, which is a long time for a bike share. Residents and visitors have signed up for over 12,000 new memberships this year. We started April with 40 stations. Unfortunately, last year, due to COVID, Springfield did not choose to open, but they did come back on May 1st, which was great. So 54 stations this summer, and next year the count will be up to 75. I feel really privileged to be in this position to help people with their transportation needs and to hear their stories of how much the bikes have improved their lives. I've heard from Access Pass members that used to take the Uber or Lyft to get the grocery store, like I said, and now they take the bikes. People who've used the bikes to lose weight. I know one guy who lost 40 pounds. He rode the bikes constantly. Couple students at UMass who were, from other countries came, and they didn't ever ride a bike, and they let me teach them how to ride on a Valley Bike, which was quite an honor, honestly. Sorry, I am going off the notes. It's really amazing to get out on the bikes and just relax. And we're finding that a lot of people are just adopting this far faster, far better than we ever thought they would. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of it. And thank you to former Mayor Morris and Mayor Josh Garcia. I really appreciate everything you've done for bike share and biking in the Valley. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Shannon. Really appreciate it. And thanks for your tireless efforts on this. So now it's my pleasure to turn it over to some really fantastic students at UMass Amherst Landscape and Regional Planning Program. And they're going to be talking about a project that they've been working on to look at the Connecticut River walk and bikeway in Springfield, and in particular to make sure that folks from a local environmental justice community have access to it and more people can be able to utilize this tremendous resource in Springfield. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the students at UMass.
Hello, hi everyone. We're really honored to be able to share briefly our research with you at MassBike's annual meeting, and we hope that all of you, and especially those of you in the Pioneer Valley, can learn maybe something new about the current struggle for equity and access to green space in the city of Springfield. So over the course of the fall semester, our group has looked at the current state of the Connecticut River Walk and Bikeway, which runs roughly 3.5 miles down the eastern side of the Connecticut River, next to Springfield's north end. And as part of our research, we have looked for solutions to the clear lack of connection between the trail itself and the community it's intended to serve, which is the Brightwood neighborhood. And that neighborhood is adjacent to the Riverwalk, but a mile-long floodwell separates the trail from the neighborhood. And not only does this block access to the trail, but it also conceals its very existence from potential visitors. And this issue is then worsened by both a lack of parking at the northern terminus of the trail and a lack of wayfinding, identifying where the trail is even located. And I'll pass it over to my friend Eli to do the second half of this presentation. Thank you.
Good work, Greg. Very happy to be here with all of you and sharing this awesome experience all about bikes. So as Greg mentioned, big issue of access to the trail, especially in proximity to an environmental justice community in Springfield. So our research has sort of led us to a couple of proposed solutions. We're not here to go any further than just proposing the research we've conducted and try to insert our opinions on this community. We really want it to be a resident-based solution, so whatever the community sees fit for themselves. So the solutions can be simple or complex. They can be as expensive as you want, or they can be lower cost. And so it really has to do with the resources and funding opportunities that are available to the Brightwood community and the broader Springfield community. So some of our solutions involve potentially building an ADA accessible ramp that clears the flood wall entirely, but we recognize that that might not be an attainable solution. And there are much more feasible options to explore when it comes to improving access to this trail. One of which could just be creating better signage. It's not overly expensive, and neither is an installation of a mural on the flood wall itself, which could help beautify the area and also improve wayfinding for the trail. So these lower cost solutions are going to serve to create a sense of place for the Riverwalk, which will hopefully increase usage. And to get involved, you can reach out to the folks at Walk Bike Springfield, attend a meeting, help campaign for rail trail equity in the Pioneer Valley. And that's all we got for you. And before I sign off, I'd just like to give a shout out to our other 2 team members that weren't speaking today, but they're in the queue, Cameron Joshua Holland and Elena Conrad. So thank you for having us all, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Awesome. I'll jump right in again. Eli, Greg, thank you so much for this awesome work and for the resources that you're providing here. I want to point everyone to the chat real quick. If you're able to take a look, Jess has put in there a way to connect with the Bike Walk Springfield team and the Riverway as well. And I recall it was 2 years ago when MassBike was thinking about engaging with the Riverwalk folks. We did a summit in Springfield, and we had a community bike ride, including with Pete Sutton, the state Mass DOT pedestrian and biking planner who is from Springfield. And we were poking around down there and finding out ways of breaking through some of the barriers, the transportation barriers. So one of the things that MassBike is going to be able to keep an eye on here is to try to connect the state resources and keep an eye on the prize so that the focus of the funding and the projects that can go to help push through. So the work that you're doing there at UMass is is invaluable for our advocacy effort so that we can kind of coordinate the arguments to present them to the powers that be to get the funding and the presentations going. Similarly, with Shannon and the Valley Bike crew, we're super proud of the growth of Valley Bike as it's been throughout the Valley. As Shannon mentioned briefly, Springfield did decide not to roll out the stations during COVID, and we were part of a advocacy campaign with local advocates who realized this was a big detriment. And several months later, we were able to congratulate the city on reinstituting their bike share system and kind of bringing back public transportation and recognizing it for what it is as public transportation, while at the same time Shannon and her team was expanding out into Chicopee and West Springfield and filling out in Holyoke. So I think it was my first week on the job here at MassBike when Valley Bike opened, and we went to the opening ceremony in Smith College. Me and the T for Mass folks drove out in a car from Boston to kind of celebrate and ride around the bikes. It was a snowy day, if I remember correctly, and we did it inside the gym, but we were able to celebrate the opening of Valley Bike, and to see it expand and explode now has been exciting to watch from a statewide level. And to kind of tie it back to the all biking is local, I want to send my sincere thanks to the leaders of the town managers and the mayors who really are the culture setters in their communities and can say, top down, they can direct people like Ricardo to do the hard work and figuring out how to put a bike lane in, but without that directive, without that pressure and the push from the top. So know that the grassroots supports you and that we are there to make sure the clamoring makes its way from the bottom, and we'll meet you halfway if you can come down from the top. So Mayor Garcia and Alex, just keep it going, and we will be there to make sure that you have the firepower as needed, because all biking is local and everybody is going to have a hard time removing that parking space or a hard time narrowing that turn or getting rid of that lane. So we get it. And we're here to make sure that your efforts do connect. So with that, short of a little bit of a preamble, I'm going to send my thanks once more to all of our speakers. We have about a third more of this presentation, so I don't want everyone to just take a deep breath. We're going to go through a little bit of the highlights of advocacy that we've been, our hits, as we like to call it, from 2021, to give an idea of some of the work that MassBike's been doing to tie it into some of the work that we just heard about that's happening throughout the state. Jess, would you be able to pop that slideshow in? Thank you. Awesome. So these are quick, and I realize that we're all getting a little zoomed out, so let's just roll through them. Back in March, MassBike was able to host the Massachusetts Coalition at the League of American Bicyclists National Bike Summit. Now, the National Bike Summit is open to all advocates, and I highly, highly encourage you to attend. If you can't attend in person, there is a virtual component. And one of the benefits of the virtual component is we set up meetings with our elected officials in Washington so that they can hear directly from their constituents about what matters to them. In March, we were able to pull together, we have hosted, I think it was 11 meetings in a day. This is a screenshot of our virtual meeting with Senator Markey's team. But this led to real change. Senator Markey was actually able to include in the INVEST Act, the Complete Streets Act. We're getting funding for electric bicycle rebates. We're getting funding for transportation alternatives, which is how most of our bike lanes, crosswalks, bus shelters come from. We were able to expand that dramatically in the new Biden administration. And we were actually able to build up our Safe Routes to Schools credibility. An attendee here at this summit joined from Newton and ran the Safe Routes to Schools task force in Newton, had this idea of being a bike-friendly driver. Big shout out to just taking an idea and up-leveling it. And now we have a program about being a bike-friendly driver through the Safe Routes to Schools program, which came from a constituent. So I can't recommend highly enough that you want to get your voice in. The National Bike Summit, hosted by the League of American Bicyclists, is probably one of the best direct ways, and that's coming in March. Next up, another huge shout out to a win this year. If Lindsay Sabadosa from First Hampshire is still on the call, we had her as our featured speaker last year when we were talking about the statewide and national push. She took on as one of her champion causes this year to get the Community Preservation Act funding codified in law so that CPA dollars can go to buy rail trails. Now, this was a very nuanced bit of a law we needed to clarify so that there was not that competition to say, oh, well, it's not technically open space if it's a preservation of a rail corridor. A little bit of nuances there. It took a law that needed to be signed by the governor. Rep. Sabadosa, Rep. Gentile, and Senator Eldridge were our main champions. We got it in the governor's budget. This is going to be a huge, huge deal, specifically for Southampton, for those of you in the Valley, also in Framingham, also in Sudbury, and really all communities that have Community Preservation Act funding could go to acquire rail trails. And a quick little nod, this photo here is on the border of Connecticut and Massachusetts. This is the Farmington Canal as it turns into the Westfield Columbia Greenway, which will then eventually roll up through Southampton to connect to the Manhan Trail, which connect to the Mass Central Rail Trail, which will then connect to 110 miles to go all the way into the city of Boston. So this crucial component of a small little change of a bill will allow cities and towns to use money to fill in those gaps. And I can't say thank you so much to our champions in the State House, specifically for this one example for Rep. Sabadosa, Rep. Gentile, and Senator Eldridge, but we have a bunch of different legislative pushes that we're pursuing here. But this was a huge, huge win. It's not every year that we get to say that we were supportive of a law that actually got implemented. Another one that we are very, very proud of is our expanding of our education. Now, really, this is a program that MassBike runs, but there's a huge tie into advocacy because the more riders that we have, the smarter riders that we have, and the more diverse riders that we have, age-wise, ability-wise, the better riding can be for everybody and the more advocates that are born. So we were able to develop our older adults riding program this year. Credit goes to the city of Cambridge for funding this pilot program to get us out every week riding with seniors. And we're going to expand our work working with the AARP of Massachusetts to really build into our Safe Routes to Schools curriculum, a Safe Routes to Parks, a Safe Routes to Senior Centers, and that's the ideology behind expanding our education system. And a little nod to the new trained instructors, we were able to get 15 certified new instructors out there this year that we're going to lean on to run these classes throughout the state. Next up, another great one along our education campaign is working with the MBTA bus operators. We revamped, working with Livable Streets Alliance and the MBTA, the training that bus operators have to go through. Now, this is in line with the new bus bike lanes that are happening in the Metro Boston area. A lot of bus drivers were unclear about how to share the roads when it's a dedicated lane for bus drivers and bike riders. We realized the MBTA training was done back in 2008, which was before Boston even had bike lanes. So working with Livable Streets, the city of Cambridge, the MBTA, we were able to build a new deck, which is an all-day training program that all new drivers have to go through. And we're looking to expand this program to other RTAs. So those of you out there, if you are part of a regional transit authority or know other bus drivers or fleets that could benefit from bus driver and bus operator training around how to drive around bicyclists, please get in touch with us. We're looking to scale out this work. This work is endless. Next up, a couple of advocacy wins. One that we've been working on for honestly better part of a decade. We were working on, hopefully every year we'll have a big infrastructure win. Our big infrastructure win this year was when Mass DOT announced that in I-90, as it approaches Boston, they're going to rebuild the crumbling highway system and make it at grade. And the idea of what it means to have the roadway on the ground will facilitate biking and walking pathways that we can actually go over the highway and extend back into the community. For those of you who have ever been in Brookline or stood on the backside of Boston University and seen the river pathway, the Paul Lillywhite pathway about 200 feet away, but to know it's completely inaccessible by infrastructure, by having Mass DOT decide to actually build on the ground is a huge decision win. Now we have to pursue this. This is going to be the next 10 to 15 years worth of advocacy to make sure this actually gets followed through with. But MassBike's at the table. I'm on this task force. I'm one of the founding members of this task force, and we're going to lean very heavily into this major infrastructure project. Next up is a local advocacy win. I want to give shout outs to one of our staffer interns, Petru from Arlington, who really held down the localist of local battles in terms of will the town of Arlington redesign one of the most dangerous intersections in their community to actually put in a protected bike lane. And for what it's worth, this is a after shot of the green paint, the elephant footprint, as Petru likes to call it, the bollards, the flex posts, the separation and the safety that comes in, and the awareness for drivers of riding through areas that are cycling infrastructure. This sadly came at the heels of a fatal crash of Charlie Proctor in 2020 in May. The town of Arlington, to its credit, went through the entire process of forming a design review committee, getting it through the select board, forming the committee, having the committee meet for 8 months, having the decision go through a democratic process, and actually have the funding come through the town. And for those of you who know how long it can take to get a bike lane, within a year, the town of Arlington has installed this infrastructure. We are incredibly grateful for Petru's work and incredibly grateful for the work in the town of Arlington, but this is one example of where an intense amount of advocacy was actually able to come to a benefit for the whole community, which is a really tough conversation for the town to have. So we're very appreciative of all the time and energy that went into this one win right here. And this honestly could be one of thousands upon thousands of intersections across the Commonwealth, but to highlight this one as a win this year is especially heartwarming for us because this was not a guarantee that we were going to be able to get bike infrastructure here. And I think lastly, we'll give a shout out to our Lights Brigade. This is going to be a recurring slide that we have up every year. We love our Lights Brigade program. For those of you unfamiliar, the goal is to hand out as many lights throughout the Commonwealth as possible. Join up, hand out lights, help volunteer, donate to us so we can purchase more lights. We are going to hand out over 1,000 lights this year. We have a little bit more fundraising to go, which I'm going to make a pitch in 1 second and maybe pass it off to Crystal right before we round out here. But the idea of we need support. We need, there are as many cyclists out there in the world that also need lights. So just keep in mind that this is one of our major campaigns that we are pursuing here, and just brighten up. It makes cyclists safer, makes people who are riding bikes more legal so that they're not in conflict with police officers, and just makes it safer for all drivers and bike riders out there as well. So I think with that, that might be all I have for our highlight slides. I should also say with Bike Month, we're going to talk about Bike Month very shortly, about where we're going to go in 2022. But I will say that Bike Month this year was an incredibly challenging task to make sure that in a pandemic, we were able to keep the encouragement statewide. But I'm proud to say that we were able to support, not host, we were able to support over 100 events throughout the state. We were able to fundraise for this. We were able to get our business sponsors and our supporters out there. We were able to build how-to guides, and this will only expand and grow as we understand who is riding and support local efforts. So if you're interested in running a local bike rodeo, a local bike breakfast, or something that really just supports those riders in your community, keep in mind Bike Month is a great time of year. And this year it's going to be in May and coming up into 2022 to get people out riding. And we're going to be there to provide you the resources and support so that you can lock this in and really kind of just get the momentum and the tailwinds behind it. Cool. I think with that, I feel like we are jumping around a bit, but it's time, I believe, to talk a little bit about our awards ceremony this year. And with that, I'm going to hand it off back to Kristen, because we do have a few highlights to hand off. And I promise you there's only a few more minutes left in this presentation. So I'm grateful to have you for this Zoom time. But Kristen, can I pass it to you to talk a little bit about our first awardee?
Absolutely, yeah. It's now my honor to announce one of our 2021 Bike Advocates of the Year, Shannon Blevin from Valley Bike. Shannon has worked for Valley Bike for 3.5 years. She is one of the hardest workers that I know and does over 50 events a year, and probably a lot more than that. She's passionate, as you could hear from her presentation earlier, about getting people on bikes, and attributes Valley Bike for her ability to get back on a bike after 15 years. Go e-assist. Shannon also serves as the vice chair on the Holyoke Bike Ped Committee and is such a huge asset to not only Holyoke, but also to the whole Connecticut River Valley. So congratulations, Shannon, and thank you so much for all you do.
Awesome, thank you, Shannon. And our next awardee is the MassBike Business Partner of the Year. And I'm proud to say that it goes to MathWorks out in Natick. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Eric from MathWorks to talk a little bit about the awesome successes of being a bike-friendly business and what that means.
Thanks, Galen. It's been great for MathWorks to partner with MassBike over the last year. That partnership has included having over 100 staff members attending lunch and learns presented by MassBike on topics ranging from ABCs of DIY bike maintenance to bike safety and bike law. In particular, MassBike helped us put together a bicycle-friendly business application this year, and MathWorks was recently awarded silver status by the League of American Bicyclists. When I started at MathWorks, I was sort of on the fence in terms of the bike commute situation, with it being this campus on Route 9. We've got a vibrant community of bike commuters, and it's actually, there are some nice ways to ride to campus, and particularly now that the Cochituate Rail Trail has opened. So staff are super excited about the CRT, which runs right past our Lakeside campus. We've now got sort of bike share, staff bike share program up and running to get between the two campuses. To do that by car requires a U-turn on Route 9. So I think biking is not just more pleasant, but also faster. We look forward to continuing to work with MassBike as everyone returns to the office. And we're looking for more ways to encourage staff to bike commute. And hopefully, this partnership can be a model for other businesses in the Commonwealth. And just, thanks to MassBike for all of the great outreach and advocacy and education work they do.
Awesome. Props to you and your whole team there, Eric. I want to say it is not a small feat to be a silver level bike friendly business on your first go. So it's a credit to you and your team for investing and supporting it. And I know we have a ways to go to get to platinum, but we're going to be with you every step of the way. And I also really love that you have your own bike share that can utilize the rail trail. And a small hit, I know that you're not an advocacy organization, but I do know that MathWorks does support the advocates locally in Natick, and they've been supportive of this rail trail through letters, through attending meetings, not officially, but with employees were able to chime in and say how much this would benefit. So for those of you who are out there in businesses, know that there is power in representing the businesses in your community. And if elected leaders, if the powers that be hear that this is good for you as a business, we will go leaps and bounds ahead. And so that's my request as an advocate there for you. Before I forget, and it's not a forget thing, before we jump towards the end of where we're going to go in 2022, I want to spend a moment with a specific thanks to our 2 interns this year. Now, MassBike is a small organization. We have a volunteer board of around 8 so far, hopefully growing next year, and a staff of 2.5 with Jess and Crystal and myself. But this year we were able to bring on the power of 2 amazing, dedicated, wise, and just really intelligent advocates. Noah Rowan from Clark University reached out to us and says, hey, I have an internship that the university just needs me to lock into. Do you have any projects for me? He's a GIS student, which is a mapping program. And we had a need in order to track the crashes that were happening around the state that we've been keeping a database for the past decade. Noah took the spreadsheet, cleaned up the spreadsheet, got in touch with district attorneys' offices, got in touch with town police departments to find out a decade ago how these crashes took place, tracked down obituaries, tracked down news articles that were over a decade old to build a report, which is about 30 pages, and it is so powerful to read the situations in which these crashes occurred. I'm so grateful to have worked with Noah, and will continue to work with Noah over the past 8 months he's been with us, and build this amazing report. I want to encourage everyone to go to the chat right now and check out the 105 report. I'm sad to say that the 105 number refers to the number of fatal crashes that are analyzed in this report. And sadly enough, 2 days after we released this report, there was another fatal crash up in Amesbury. So the number is rising. We don't want to highlight the dangers or the negativity around it. The purpose of this report was to humanize and to tell the stories of these people. So they're not statistics, they are names, they are situations, and that has an amazing resounding impact on our advocacy. So Noah, I know you're here. I'm just going to ask Jess to spotlight you real quick so everybody can just give you a quick round of applause to know that we are so grateful to have you. And and my heart goes out with you for doing some of the toughest work that we do at MassBike. Thank you. Our other amazing intern, we touched on it briefly with the Arlington side, but Petru Sofio, who approached MassBike as a high school sophomore, now a high school junior, with ideas on how to build better infrastructure on the road that he crosses twice a day to go to and from school. There was a fatal crash 2 years ago, and nearly the week after, or the month after that, there's almost a second serious fatal crash of bicyclists who are just going home or going to the store or going, as we all do, just going to get takeout. And Petru, as a wise beyond his years high school student, said, I want to do something to change this. Petru has been able to attend the design review committee meetings as a representative of MassBike, has been able to rally his fellow students and his peers, which really is the power of youth in the next generation to get these conversations rolling, has been able to respectfully suggest improvements that paid engineers and consultants have missed. Now, not a hit to the consultants, but Petru has an eye for this and a mindset for this, which is not necessarily innate. And Petru has been able to share his gifts in such a way that they have been implemented, not just respected and heard, but then implemented on the ground. And for those of you who've been, again, trying to get bike lanes instituted, it takes years and sometimes decades to get some of this work down. So we would be nothing at MassBike without the local push. And so we are super grateful to be able to have brought Petru on as an intern, who's still going to continue the work in Arlington and beyond to make sure that the Safe Cycling Network not just is better for him and his fellow classmates, but that we are building an equitable and safe and just bike-friendly environment in Arlington and beyond. So Petru, if you're on, I'm going to ask just a quick do a highlight for you, and just to say thank you so much for all the work out there. I'm grateful to have you. Cool. With that, I'm going to just decide we're going to probably start to wrap this up. Knowing that we're going a little bit long, I'm going to do a quick slide on what to expect in 2022. Then we're going to take a breather. We have a 5-minute video to show you of the Bicycle Film Fest, just to get your appetite wet of what's going to be coming for the Bike Film Fest that we're going to ask you to plug into in the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to do a breakout session. It's going to be about a 15 minute or so breakout session where we're just going to scatter everybody into groups where you can meet up and talk. Casual, we're going to prime it up. But before we get to that, some highlights into 2022. Jess, I'll ask you to pull up that slide as well. And this is just rounding out some of our formal presentation here. But what is on deck for MassBike coming in the new year? So as we were talking about our board development and growth, one of the hardest things that we are tackling here is who are we serving and what do we represent at MassBike? We want to make safe cycling for all across the Commonwealth, and we know flat out that cycling resources and safe cycling is not equitable, and there are hard color barriers, hard economic barriers about who is getting what. So we are engaged and committed to investing, and we've been doing this for a couple of years already, but we're going to invest double and triple fold into our equity training for our staff and board, and we're going to continue that as part of our regular process of leading with race and racism, leading with the inequities, and trying to build equality, not really equality, but the equity into all of our work. Along with that, it's going to depend on diversifying our leadership. So please pay attention for the coming weeks about how we're going to try to do a call for new board members, which is going to be on a rolling basis, pretty much ongoing. If you want to plug in with MassBike's work, we're going to ask that you attend our virtual meetups. We put them on the 4th Mondays of the month. It's a lunchtime thing. Grab your lunch, just sit down and talk. We'll usually have a presentation that's about half it, and then a talk for about the other half. It gives us an opportunity to have a two-way dialogue with our advocates that are out there. Our legislation is ongoing. We're entering our 2nd year of this session. We have one legislative win, but we have about 5 more bills that we are pursuing. We can link to you in the chat of some of our legislative work, but know that we are not slowing down. We just have to ramp up in order to get some of these bills passed by the end of the session. We're going to keep our infrastructure tracking, which is actually going to kick itself up a notch now that we have the rescue plan funds coming from the feds and the Invest Act funds coming from the feds. There is going to be billions, and I say billions with a big B, of dollars that need to be implemented locally. So if you have a project, if you have a trail, if you have something that you are excited about, please share it with us, share it in the chat right now, share it with us on email, tell us what's going on so we can try to plug in the best that we can to make sure that these dollars and these resources are spent around there. We're going to be focusing and continuing our Vision Zero work, which includes the memorial tracking, the ghost bike creation, and the goal is to get that work off of what MassBike does and to put ourselves out of a job. But until that day, we're going to be pursuing our Vision Zero work with our coalition partners. And then we're also going to be hosting regional in-person events with local advocates. We have a couple save the dates for you. One more slide, which is just grab your Sharpies, put these on your calendar. The National Bike Summit from the League of American Bicyclists is going to take place the final weekend in March. Please attend if you can. It's worth it to be in person, but if you can only attend virtual, that's great. We can hook you up. You'll learn a wealth of wisdom and be connected to your local electeds. In April, we're going to be pushing our encouragement with 30 days of biking, and you can win a plethora of prizes. It's going to queue us up for Bike Month in May, which is just going to explode out the gate and kick us off for the good riding season, which we're going to carry through all the way through 2022. At the end of May, we've set our date for the Charlie Proctor Memorial Ride. Charlie was a rider who was killed in Arlington, right at the intersection, which now has that new infrastructure. But we're going to be doing an annual ride for Charlie in memoriam, working with Charlie's friends and family. It's going to be out of the Mystic Lakes, but that date is set for the final weekend in May. We hope you can join us. The Golden Spike Conference is going to happen July 30th. It's going to be the celebration of the Mass Central Rail Trail work and the work that is yet to come. Props to Craig Della Penna and all the work that is happening on bit by bit, the puzzle that is being knit together. But the Golden Spike Conference is something that is not to be missed. It's an all-day affair. So put it in your calendars for July 30th. COVID willing, we're going to meet in person and talk about all the work in terms of building out our Mass Central Rail Trail. For Pete's sake, it's another memorial ride, which we inaugurated this year, which we are going to continue. This year we ran it in October. I think we're going to look a little bit earlier, considering it's in Salem. In Salem in October is a little bit dodgy, but that's going to be for Peter Delcetti Jr., who was tragically killed in a car by a driver of a car in Haverhill in 2020 as well. And we're going to be memorializing Pete for the For Pete's Sake ride for Peter. World Day of Remembrance is going to be on the final weekend before Thanksgiving, November 20th next year. So hopefully if you have a person in mind who you want to memorialize, if you want to get in touch with the district attorneys and your local elected leaders, this is a great opportunity to remind people of the importance and the severity of what we do. And then lastly, just our virtual updates that are happening every single month. This conversation is not just once a year with our annual meeting. We are really trying to permeate the barrier between advocates and create a network of opportunity, which is going to lead us to our networking slide in a moment. So please do plug in. We have a lot on the calendar, and we're only going to be growing next year. We're going to have new staffers. The updates, yes, Jeff, thank you for that mention. Just stay tuned to MassBike. It'll be in our newsletter. It's a new Zoom link every month and a new theme every month. But if you have any topics that you want us to cover, please shoot them our way. And the goal here is to elevate issues and network so that we're sharing resources. Again, we're a small staff, we're a volunteer board. We really lean on the coalition of Massachusetts Bicycle Coalition, and this is where you can come in.